I'm real pleased to welcome to Kenversations Denny Carleton. Denny has really been one of the more distinguished long-term musicians in Cleveland with quite a diverse range of achievements. I mean, from British Invasion to punk to spiritual music, and everything in between, and significantly probably carrying fans from beginning to end, and not alienating people with what you're doing too badly at any point.
I don't think too badly.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure to have a Cleveland music legend here to speak to me.
That's right. I love doing this, and I like how you do the interviews. The one I saw, which was
well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, a big part of my talks is it's not just about the music. It's got to have the framework of the culture around and the life around. And I think one of the things that's missing in this instant news and instantly forgotten history culture we live in is trying to preserve the history of what it was like in the 60s, in the 70s, and since then, and how that affected or impacted or influenced you. And what was your earliest light bulb musically that
same as everybody else?
Beatles.
As Ed Sullivan, the Beatles. And when I think Deanna Adams said that everybody from the 60s says that, and it was true. I saw the Beatles on television, and I wanted to start a band. I had a friend named Larry Tomzak, who was the drummer of the Lost Souls. He had the same feeling, and so we went and took lessons at Soldiers Music on East 185th, and within 9 months, there's about 5 or 6 of us were good enough to have a band. And I've been doing music ever since. That was in 1965, 64 when we took the lessons. And some of my memories were like, when I first started, was I really liked to, I used to practice in front of the mirror, which I found out is somewhat common. And I would sing I'm a Loser by John Lennon. And I remember specifically, I never even had the nerve to ask my parents for a turtleneck. So I took my white shirt, turned it around backwards when Mel was home, so I looked like the Dave Clark 5. So that was my musical start. And we ended up playing in the Lost Souls within about 9 months. We all went to St. Joe's High School. And about 3 months after the Lost Souls started, a guy named Denny Merrick, who was in a band called the RDs. Denny was one of these kids who took lessons since he was, 5. He was already a guitar teacher at Petromelli's, and he joined the band, and that gave us steroids. After that, it was like I played the guitar for 9 months, and there's this guy who played 10 years going, "Why don't you try this? How about that? Why don't you play the chord like that?" And he just shaped our band up real fast.
What was a typical set list? Were you playing hits, or did you have deep album tracks?
Yeah, right from the beginning.
Well, albums didn't exist early till Sgt. Pepper.
We did Little Black Egg, Secret Agent Man, Little Latin Loop-de-Loo, Beatles songs if we could sing them. You Really Got Me, all very, very classic. The thing about the Lost Souls, it was different. The Lost Souls had a sax player who also played flute. So we could go and play. I was as mod as anybody else, and most of the guys were. But we also had a sax, so at any given time we could go into like Motown and play it pretty well. So because of that, we had this kind of weird. We could go and be British, and at the same time we weren't like greasers or anything, but we could play that music and we liked it.
Yeah.
Midnight Hour, we liked that. We liked Everybody Needs Somebody to Love. We liked all that stuff.
So that was instead of the mods and rockers, it was the mods and the greasers in America.
Yeah, and so like we because of that, like we were from Euclid, we could play Euclid, but we also could play the same places the mods did, which became the choir and all that. They were very British, but we could go right in there and stand up with it. But we also could play the west side of Cleveland and play Lorraine Avenue, and people wouldn't, but. It's just the same thing like with everybody from the 60s. The long hair got me in trouble. And would give us hassles all the time. I was probably the worst in the band. I looked like Brian Jones.
You sure did. In the picture you sent me, it was like You came out of the same monkey mold as Brian Jones, it looked
I
like.
think
You know?
I'm part Welsh and part Irish, part English, so it might have something to do with it too. But Danny Clemente used to tell me, he says, we all wanted to look like Brian Jones, but you were him. Yeah. And yeah, I think I really looked a lot like Brian Jones.
So
I
besides,
can't tell that now. But,
well,
I did.
you look better than Brian
Yeah, well,
Jones
that's
does
true
right
at this
now.
point. For quite a
And,
while, I've been
yeah, for over 50 years, you looked a heck of a lot better than Brian Jones. And,
You got that's true.
so besides the teen clubs, what was your guys'
Well, back then, Catholic parishes, CLEOs, had dances. And so, like, there was a lot of Catholic parishes back then, and they all had dances. And they weren't, like, religious dances, they were just dances. And
youth dances?
Youth dances.
Yeah.
And they just thought it was fun for the kids, I guess. And they had the KSC halls, and then I started playing the Chesterland Hullabaloo's, too. So,
Right.
when I grew up, there was probably maybe 15 to 20 to 30 different places to play every weekend.
What time did bands play at the teen clubs?
That's a good question. I don't remember that. I think we were done by 10 or 11.
Oh, that late. I
don't remember.
I had for some reason just thinking they'd throw them at 4 o'clock to make sure that the kids weren't out late or something.
Because I know it was dark, like maybe 9 or 10.
Okay.
I mean, but it was big in there. I mean, that was as I say, if you can imagine, almost every Catholic parish in Northeast Ohio having some sort of teen dance. I played them all, and then also the Hullabaloos. There were 5 or 6 Hullabaloos: Menor Hullabaloo, Chesterland Hullabaloo, Lorraine. There was even one in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Someone brought up a teen club in Lorraine. Or a place that the Raspberries played on Lake Erie in Lorraine. Do you know of anything that could have been?
No, I know the Lorraine Hullabaloo, and there was armories.
Yeah.
I played Chagrin Armory.
Yeah. I have a James Gang tape from the Chagrin Armory.
I played Chagrin Painesville Armory. I played, and I think there was one in Elyria. I think we opened, the Lost Souls opened for the Music Explosion.
Wow. Dance, yeah.
Yeah. And then a little bit of soul.
A little bit of soul. Well, what would you guys get paid for gigs back then?
Probably the same wage you do now for certain bands. Probably about $200.
Which
maybe $250.
Shoot, which is like $700 in our economy or something now.
After I was when I was a junior in high school, I went to St. Joe's, which was money-wise the same. Junior and senior, I paid for my own high school from my income from playing in bands.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, but I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, that's the right thing to do. I'm a child of Depression-era parents, and so, yeah, okay, that's cool. I'll do that. I felt pretty proud of myself. I didn't even think I felt anything. I just thought I should do it. It would help out.
I used my paperette money to pay tuition in college, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it felt good. But I mean, I was just saying that you could I was making a living by the time, I think of that. It was a real, when I got out of bands for a while in the 70s, it was a real crash down to figure out, well, what do I do? I have no skills besides I just play this guitar, I got out of bands for a while.
Yeah.
And that was really hard to figure out how to, but it was the 70s, so that was a weird time anyway.
Well, were your parents supportive of you playing music? And
yeah, I had great parents, and my mother actually made a lot of the outfits. If you see any of these frilly, crazy outfits that I had one that looked like Austin Powers. I had one with an American Eagle shirt and Nehru jackets. Not only did she make my shirts, and my aunt Mary Catherine sewed them, my mom designed them. Not only did she make these shirts and these outfits, but she started making it for the other guys in Lost Souls, and she even made one for Jim Bonfanti in the choir. And they were these British or these Indian Nero things.
Sure.
Nero jackets.
Right.
And the most
embroidered coming down like this.
The one I have that is, I still actually have it at home, but it doesn't fit right. Is an American Eagle on the front. And that my mom made that. So my mom was awesome. She taught me a lot about how not to be a crabby old person. She just would sit there and listen to the kids and talk to us. And I know you're not bad kids, even though you look freak, And we're talking the Lost Souls, the choir. We're talking about Brian. Brian Sands, you know, and we were weird by then, you know. We not weird, but we were going farther out, you know. And my mom saw every style of person come through those doors, every extreme you could imagine, and she just tried to like, hey, you kids are good, you know. It's a good thing, you know. It's a little Jane Scott in her, you know. That's how Jane Scott kind of was, you know.
Jane was awfully, like, I won't say motherly, more like awfully auntly, you know.
She was auntly. Yeah. But my mom, I've heard many kids tell me that, and many adults now, they remembered so much that my mom, and my dad too, but it was my dad was like working the odd shifts and stuff like that. But my mom was, really great.
What did your dad do for a living?
He was a blue collar guy, and he would work in factories, worked at Lincoln Electric, worked a lot of places, and he had a lot of problems. He'd work, and then he'd get laid off, and then he'd have another one, and then he'd get laid off. And we were lower middle class Cleveland, 185th Street area, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Not real bad, but I never knew I was lower middle class till I went to Tri-C, and I had a sociology course.
Until they tell you there's a problem going on, you don't get it in your head.
Fine.
You think about all these concepts that are brandished around now in the social media.
Yeah.
Ignore what people say or do and prove yourself and take personal responsibility, and stuff will probably work out pretty darn well, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
So,
they didn't prepare us in high school or college for this world we live in today.
So every musician I talk to, we bring up the inevitable. Were you in it for the girls or the music or both? And
mine was probably a little bit different. I was in it for. I really think I was in it for the music, and I was totally startled when the girls liked me. I went from being a baseball card collecting kid, and in Class F, I told my manager, play me or trade me in baseball. And I was 14 going on 15. By the time I was 16, I was in the Lost Souls, and girls liked me, and they looked like young women. And it actually confused me a little bit, because I couldn't comprehend how Joyce, who looked cute and beautiful and everything, liked me. Like, she likes you, you know. I was a little kid in a teenager's body, you know. So for me, I was shocked by it. I was totally shocked by it. I thought the girls liking me. So I don't think I went into it for that. I just liked that music, but then
it was a good benefit.
After that, I got into it.
How long did the last Souls last or go on?
We were from 65 to 68, and we during the time that we were together, we played. We opened for some pretty old sounding bands. We opened for Bobby V,
sure.
The Shangri-Las. We played on the same bill as the Lemon Pipers, the Poor Girls. That was a Cleveland band.
Okay.
One of the.
Were they a sock hop kind of?
I think so. And somehow they got on this band. But we played the Cleveland Stadium, and I remember it was like the next band to play were the Beatles. It was the week before the Beatles came to the Cleveland Stadium, and we played, and we were done, and then that was all happening, and we walked out of the dugout because we were in one of the dugouts. We walked back to like these dressing rooms, and a mob of girls chased us. And you won't believe this, ladies and gentlemen, but I got afraid. It wasn't like, this is great. It was like, they're going to kill us, you know? And we ran, Lemon Pipers and everybody, we just ran. We were all dressed in capes and all kinds of crazy outfits, you know. We just ran, and it was like a stampede. These girls were going to crush us as we got into the door. And then we all just sat there like, wow. That was really something, but that was in a way it sounds even now I can remember how frightening that was actually.
Now
I don't know.
You've blown my mind a little bit, because I always thought the first Cleveland Municipal Stadium concerts were the Beatles. What happened at the stadiums before?
Oh, they were. I played at the concert.
Yeah. You just said that.
There was. I don't know what it was called, but it was the Lemon Pipers. The Lost Souls got thrown in there somehow, and Poor Girls and.
I thank you. I always thought Beatles were invented like stadium rock shows. And
somebody in Cleveland was doing it. I don't remember.
And what would the setup be? Would the kids
We
be
were right in the middle of the ball diamond with this big stage, and it sounded
and
horrible.
the kids had to stay in the
It sounded
ballpark.
horrible.
Yeah.
You just played wrong, it was just sort of a rush. You go out there and you're doing it. It's very distant to me, but I remember that it was fun and I couldn't hear anybody. And I knew some of the guys in the band were more frustrated with that than me,
So Lost Souls, did they get out of Cleveland?
Lost Souls, this is kind of a standard thing for me. We were like blue collar kids with blue collar parents, and our manager was our ex Little League coach. So we didn't know what we were doing. We were in the choir, they had Ray Taylor, they were connected because they got the Roulette records and the Canadian American. But we just didn't know how to do it. So we had a really good demo that we made. We did some good recordings. We had my writing, and Denny Merrick and Chuck McKinley wrote really well. And we went and recorded stuff, and that basically nobody heard it. One day I played those tapes in the '80s for Tom Fallon.
Sure, from the New Salem Witch Hunters. Sure.
Yeah, and he goes, "You got to put this out." So I was doing Green Light Records at the time in the '80s, and I put out The Lost Souls. And it got reviewed by Richie Unterberger, and then it got people liked it on college radio in the '80s. So that was kind of cool. I knew that people liked the Lost Souls in the '80s, and so we got played on a lot of radio stations.
Were there tapers back then? Did you know people taping shows?
No, Denny Merrick has a lot of live tapes, and a lot of those things have been out. There was Lionheart Productions a couple of years ago from Chicago put out a Lost Souls CD, which, is really, he did really well, and he would let me settle. It's really easy for me to settle, and he wouldn't let me settle, and he made me look around, and he really cleaned up the old tapes as good as he could. Sure. And it's on Bomp, or you can get it at my website, or when Lionheart doesn't do it, they just...
So it's on Bomp's label, or...
No, it's not on Bomp's.
Yeah, they just distribute it. Yeah.
And Lionheart doesn't distribute it either, but I got a whole bunch of copies of those.
Don't we all?
Yeah. But that's a nice CD. It has a 32-page booklet. It talks about everything you want to know. Lost Souls just had we went for a while, and at some point we got we wanted to do our own music. Yeah. The one thing I keep thinking of to mention is the minute I got in bands, I started writing songs. So like when I was 16, had my guitar 3 months, I started writing. And I remember doing my first song, I Want You. It was like, I want you.
Almost like the Kinks song,
yeah.
I got you? Or,
yeah. I feel blue, you say to me, you can't see. And at the end of the song, and I go, now I see you don't like me. And I came off the stage, this is like maybe my first gig or second gig, and he goes, that I don't like me would sound better if I said, you don't love me. And I said, I'm 16 years old. I don't like them yet. They don't like me. They don't love me. I don't love them yet. So I think that was the beginning of me being a songwriter, It was like, no, that's my song,
What was your writing method? Was it always write words and then put music, or vice versa, or either?
I always wrote words and then put music out of my heart, and then as I've gone on, probably because of survival and because I've lasted as long as I had, and then I got to make a living teaching the guitar, I've gotten to be a lot better acoustic guitar player. I'm a lot better guitar player than I used to be, and I started noticing that more people like my guitar work than they do my lyrics. Mm-hmm. And my concepts. I always thought I was lyric concept guy, when I actually got old enough to think about it. And I found out that more people liked my guitar work. And so I've really tried, as I write more and more now, to make sure there's a musical bed to it, and there's a riff, and there's stuff where I play guitar. But I didn't even think of that when I was like 16 or 20 or I don't know. That came like later because I just survived playing music for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
For a long time, and so you teach guitar 20, 30, 40 people a week, and you got to keep ahead of everybody. You start just getting better.
Sure.
Well, I just got a lot better on guitar.
So
And I didn't even know that. I was like sort of the girl in high school that's heavy set, and then all of a sudden later on she thins out. You're good on guitar. Oh, yeah, whatever. I'm not Denny Merrick. I'm not Randy Quillan. I'm not Al Goldlacar. I'm not. No, they're the guitar guys. I'm the bass, second guitar, ideas, vocals. But at one point, I started to realize that I had just gotten better.
So which bands during the Lost Souls era that you were playing on bills with, or maybe even going and seeing on nights off, who stuck out to you in that period?
Well, my favorite back then, I think for a lot of us, were the Mods, who became the Choir.
Yeah.
They just had that whole 60s thing, but my goodness, I mean, you got the scene in the 60s. You've got Glenn Schwartz, you've got the James Gang, you've got Circus, you've got Michael Stanley, you've got the Mother's Oats, you've got Damnation of Adam Blessing, you've got Eli Radish with Tommy Foster and Danny Sheridan, you got Phil Keaggy and the Glass Harp, you got, the Cyrus Erie with Eric and Wally Bryson. Come on, that's off the charts.
So was it graduating that broke up the Lost Souls, or what happened?
Well, we went junior, senior, and the first year of college for everybody back then, and the Lost Souls. Everybody seemed to go in a different direction. I was fixated with music. I'd stay home and study, and they'd go out and have a few brewskis. Not that I haven't had a few brewskis in my time, but I did not do that then. I was just like, oh well, I got some time off. I'm going to go and practice my scales, So I was getting like real serious about music. It was very important to me, and people lost interest or changed. A couple of guys that never played since.
Wow.
So I just really got into it, and during that time, Jim Bonfanti, the choir, had finally broken up every version of the choir. There was some musical chairs and all these guys. And Jim started doing, actually, you'd have to know Jim to see how he would like to do this. He became our roadie. He knew us all from Tri-C. He knew Rich Schonauer. He knew all of us. And he was from Euclid Lake County, and sort of was more connected back then. And so Jim became our roadie.
Okay.
And he hauled our equipment.
Wow.
For 3 months. And I also used to tell Jim, you're really good at this. And he loved that. He loved that. Like, well, yeah, I know what it takes, So he was our roadie, and he saw me play, and the band was dissolving. We went into all originals, and we had played everywhere in Northeast Ohio, and we did all originals, and we had some that sounded like the Mothers of Invention and crazy stuff as well as the poppy stuff, and we just go out and play it. We just play songs people didn't know, and nobody relate. They didn't relate to it. They got ticked off, and we would get, we had nobody liked it. We had songs that weren't danceable, and all of our jobs started going down, and that's what we wanted to do. We had nothing to prove locally.
Right.
And it was just a natural thing, and so then I was asked to join the choir.
And how long were you in the choir?
I was in the choir 9 months.
Okay.
And we started over again. Jim decided to start it over again, keep the name. He asked me to play the bass. He asked Randy Quillan, which was Danny Quillan's younger brother. Phil G. Lombardo, he had known from the James Gang, and he had Phil and Jim and Joe Walsh tried to start a band called Pie. I don't know what they were going to add to that, and that didn't work out. And so Jim knew Phil, and Kenny Margolis had sort of become a member of the choir somewhere along the line. So it was me and Kenny and Phil, and me on the bass, and Randy Quillan on guitar. And then within 30 days, we had practices every night. We learned 30 songs, including all these Procol Harum songs, all these complicated originals that are on the Artifact CD and the Music Box CD that we did in our reunion, including MacArthur's Park, including Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys, And all of those intricate, we did that in 30 days, and I had to switch from the guitar to the bass with, a lot of people say, how come you never sang in the choir? I sang like one song on the CD. It was out. I was concentrating on the bass. I'm playing with these people that did their instruments for like since, the choir was on a way different level than the Lost Souls.
Right.
Is actually sort of quite stressful for me. It was very, I was used to the neighborhood band, doing whatever I wanted, and they were happy that I did it. And all of a sudden I was in this band, and this band was, it toured, and it was the choir.
Now, did your version of the choir tour, or was it?
No, we played regionally. We played like in Cincinnati, some place called the Black Dome, and we played regionally, but we played locally. We played every Sunday at Deepoo's downtown.
Sure.
And we played all of the hullabaloos, and we basically couldn't get past Eric Carmen and Cyrus Erie. They were like the top band. And I mean, back then though, man, you'd give anything for that. We would still have 400 people at our thing, but they would have 700 people.
Right.
And they were more popular. And the Cyrus Erie, but the Cyrus Erie might have done 2 or 3 originals a night. They probably wrote, but we did 15.
Right.
Half of our set was original and weird. I mean, progressive. You know, and so it was kind of a challenge. We did pretty good considering that.
So you were talking like what, 67, 68?
That was 68.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
65, Lost Souls were 65, 66, and 67 into 68.
Okay.
So that was like the end of the school year, kind of like we broke up. Or we were breaking up. You know how bands break up. You know, like pretty soon.
It's sort of like anything breakup you've got. They're never quite clean.
Yeah. So you're there, and it's like, well, we got one more gig. We got to do it. I don't feel like doing it, but we got to do it. So, but then that September, the choir started. Within a month, we were playing.
Mm-hmm.
So that lasted about 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we were pretty popular. We made a record, which ended up being the Artifact re-released record. A demo which was not accepted by anybody, and then Eric Carmen asked Kenny Margolis and Randy to join the Cyrus Erie, and that was a musical merry-go-round circus too, you know, because people were in and out of those bands. So those guys got in the band, and when Jim was going to start the choir again, and I was kind of like the odd guy out. I wasn't a leader. I was kind of passive. It was the only band I was ever in where I wasn't like, hey, this is what I think. You know, I was just like, I get this bass, you know. And so that was it. So I was out of the choir, and within probably, just a couple days, Brian Kinchy called me up and asked me if I wanted to join Moses or start a band with him. Yeah.
Fill me in on Brian Sands, if you would.
Well. Brian, so after I was out of the choir, I was in, Brian Sands asked me to, Brian Kinchy or Brian Sands, he changed the name to Brian Sands, asked me to join the band. And he was a 17-year-old kid, and I was maybe like 19, maybe 20, 19 and a half, 20, something like that.
That's a big difference back then.
Yeah, 2.5 years, yeah, it was actually. He couldn't get drafted, and 2.5 years, 2.5 years difference pretty much with me and that whole band. And Brian was a real interesting character. He was like a vegetarian, and he wouldn't even eat food that wasn't, if it was in a can, he wouldn't eat the food. You know, not this boy. I'm not gonna have any. No, you know. And he, you know, he was into very much into health. Kind of really ahead of his time in that way, and but he really liked Federico Fellini. He liked art, and he liked Salvador Dali. And you know, sometimes people ask, "Well, how in the world could you be in the Pagans or be in these bands?" Well, you know, I was pretty creative. I had the imagination thing going, you know. So for me, it was just like, "Wow, this is really great," you know. So I think I probably got into all of that way more because of him, but I had another friend, Gary Stoyer, who was very avant-garde and artistic and went to Cleveland Institute of Art. So I always had that kind of in me, but Brian just was off the charts with it. And so Brian was into avant-garde and theatrics. And So we first started our first band. He asked me to be in the start a band, and so we got this Chris Kameroff and West Side and Jay Brick, and then we tried out someone I knew from Lake County named Dave Alexi, and so that became the first Moses. That lasted about 3 or 4 months. Meanwhile, Randy Clowan, who had joined Eric Carmen, was either put out. I think he was put out of the band or quit the band because whatever. He asked to start a band with us. So through a long process, it ended up being Randy Clowan, myself, Dave Alexi, and Brian. And Brian, because of this surrealistic aspect and Fellini, and he liked The Mother's Invention. He liked David Bowie. He liked Captain Beefheart. I don't even know if David Bowie was even around then. I think he was starting to come out. And Brian was David Bowie's first. He was the fan club president of David Bowie 9 months before David Bowie came.
Wow. Okay.
I remember him telling me, his mother said, Brian, someone's calling from England, it's David Bowie, because he was going to come and do his first concert in Cleveland.
Right.
And he's, come on, Mom, don't play games with me. And it was David Bowie. And so there's pictures of Brian with David Bowie. But there's pictures with Brian with a lot of people, with Roger McGuinn and Jim McGuinn back then. And, for me, my memories of Brian were, we were just, we were soulmates as far as creativity. And we would just sit and just laugh our heads off with ideas for the band, when we come out, we not only we want to be theatrical, because we would start our shows sometimes we'd start with Great Balls of Fire, and we would dim the lights, and then there would be a government warning saying, there may be a nuclear bomb. And if you remember, I don't know if they're used to things like that.
Duck and cover.
Yeah, like what's the other ones? They have the funny ones about the reefer madness and all this. There were these government things about, in case, so we would put that in there, through the PA system, and then the lights would go on, and Brian would come out with gigantic, oversized rubber gloves, and we do Great Balls of Fire. You shake my nerves and you rattle my brains, So that would be that's how we started,
Yeah.
So we eventually ended up doing Cold Turkey by Yoko Ono. That was a little later. Lennon and Yoko Ono, and Randy and I would put masks on, and we would be the drugs overtaking Brian. We'd kick him around the stage and everything, and he would convulse. And he had a big box with toys. So when we would do a hard rock guitar solo, Randy would be doing his Jimmy Page kind of stuff, and we would just be pounding on the same chords over and over again. Brian would take a thing and do exercises. He was about 98 pounds, and he'd do these exercises. He had all these toys in there he'd bring up, and then I think some of them he got from the Bonzo Dog Band. He'd come out and he'd put little cartoon things, like what was that about, or something like a little like a comic book thing. So we were really different. And we were kind of like a clean cut magical mystery tour Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is as much theatrics, except if at the end we would go, we all shine on, and Brian would bring out a big thing he would get from a grocery store about, sun, for orange juice or something. We'd put that out, and we throw candy at the audience. So we were in that all you need is love 60s era. That was real then, and so we were in that. And then I had ideas, I made programs up. We would have a program which would map out what songs we were going to do. And we did a song called Old Time Religion. We gave rhythm sticks to people, and they could do that. And one time we opened for Iggy Pop.
Wow.
And we brought in, Randy and I went to East Lake North and asked if we could use their choir. And the school let us use their choir. And they started off singing Old Time Religion. It was a different song than the one I don't even remember how this song goes, but which is strange for me because I usually remember everything. But I don't even remember how it goes. But we would do it, and the choir was there. And that particular day, Brian and I used to always go to costume shops, and we would get crazy Victorian era clothes or things that the Rolling Stones would wear on Beggar's Banquet or something, you know, vest.
Boas and fluffy stuff. Yeah.
And so we got these big high shoes that they were actually for like they looked like grandma shoes. They were black, and it's like I'd wear them, you know. And I was on stage, and these mostly girls were in this choir, and we were rehearsing, and I fell off the stage onto my chest. One, I was laying there like a turtle and looking up at all these, you know, girls my age, you know, or a little bit younger, and I'm like, okay, I'm still cool, you know. And then I walked into the dressing room, and there's Iggy Pop smoking something, and he goes, I said, hey, they say you're a weird showman, but you know, I think you're pretty cool, or something like that. He goes, well, this boy's very informed, you know. So there's like, it was just weird, you know, like you fall off the stage, there's Iggy Pop, you know.
What year, like 71-ish?
I don't, yeah, we were like 69 to 70, 71. We opened for, because a lot of those Detroit bands would just come to Cleveland all the time.
Sure.
We opened for Iggy Pop, we opened for Alice Cooper, and my big Alice Cooper, Amboy Dukes with Ted Nugent. I'm sure there were more, MC5.
Well, yeah.
So, I remember the strangest thing was when we opened for Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper came off the stage, and you know, we just opened for him, and we were good. You know, we were theatrical. You know, and it was a good fit in a sense. And he had taken a rubber chicken and then made it look like he didn't kill the chicken, but he had made it look like the chicken's head was, and then he had put his head in the guillotine or whatever it was that he did. And I said, wow, that was really some show. And he goes, you know, I'd like to get people into that place beyond their predisposed mechanism and defense mechanism so that I can get into the inner fabrics of the heart. And I go, you just try to cut a chicken's head off, you know.
And this coming from a minister's son.
Yeah, and he was saying all this, and it was like, you know, and so later on when I saw Wayne's World, when they said in the movie, I heard you played Milwaukee, he said, oh, it's actually Milwaukee, which is from the Indian translation. I go, that's an inside joke. That's what this dude is like, you know? And so that was pretty amazing, really. The Alice Cooper thing. But Moses was an incredible band. It was, and there's a lot of people, combination of the good vibes of the Kinks, the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour with crazy theatrics. Randy Clement played a great guitar. He played like kind of like a Jimmy Page with a lot of echo. And Dave Alexis was just this real hard drummer. And I played bass. And we did a lot of my songs, mostly my songs. And then Brian's songs were always the most theatrical. His were great. He did one called Shock Treatment, and he had an Albert Einstein mask, and he would put it on with a theremin. And he just, all of a sudden, was shock treatment, let me go. John Lennon, picture John Lennon, shock treatment now, shock treatment. Really great vocals. And then you go, you can really play that thing. And that was great. You know, we had a couple songs that we did. We did Cold Turkey to try to get kids off of drugs. We found out later everybody got high to watch us. So Moses was awesome.
Did Moses get out of Jerusalem?
Well, Moses ended up, we actually, one time, Moses too also, which was one of my ideas, we rented a bus, and the girl that helped us organize, we happened to leave her behind to go to Erie, Pennsylvania, and we did call it the Magical Mystery Tour Bus. So we actually rented a bus, a local band rented a bus to take 40 kids to Erie, PA to see us play. But Moses, yeah, so what did you say?
Well, did you get out of town? Did Moses tour?
That's what you're going to say. Yeah. Moses, Otto Neuber managed us for a while. That's how we got, he ran the Menor Hullabaloo. Okay. So he gave us all these opening gigs. We didn't get really paid for them, but we got those great experiences, which it feels okay. And, but one day I saw one of the bands like Freeport Express. Kevin Raleigh was in that. He ended up being Michael Stanley's keyboard player. He was in that, And they had some kind of a thing where they did something in Pittsburgh, and I saw this guy named Paul St. John,
Hey.
Rich Angler. So I called them, and it was a 412 number, and they ended up booking us for many Pittsburgh jobs. We had this choir, the Moses was definitely a Cleveland band, and we had this tie-in to Pennsylvania with Pittsburgh. We played many things in Pittsburgh. We played Shady Side in front of 15,000 people, which was I remember it was
Sure,
sort of
sure.
a college district.
Yeah, it's sort of like Coventry.
Yeah, and there was some place that we played, like it was like right around a college or the art institutions there, and it was an outdoor concert. It was like a bunch of people. We would go there, and we would play Wednesday, stay overnight, and play Friday and Saturday. And I remember the thing that really soured us about it. We used to get $350, and the guy would take 15%, so we would get $275 or something a night, which was, if you really think about it, it was really a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple $100 a piece for just being kids or young adults, really. So we go there, and one guy, this guy, I think he was loosely connected to Tommy James of the Shondells. I think his name was Matt.
Connected is a bad term with Tommy James.
Well, somehow. So he ended up saying, you guys, I can't have you play here anymore. I just can't. I can't afford the $750 a night I have to pay you. We thought we'd get $350.
Yeah, he was
The guy
getting
was-
more for booking the show than you guys were
Somebody was
playing it.
skimming some money, and it wasn't Rich Angler.
Don't worry about that. What Pittsburgh bands were you playing with?
We were headliners, and I don't remember any of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we would play, and we'd play like places like Johnstown, Pennsylvania, also.
Sure.
And then they would have us go to and in Pittsburgh, we play one side of the town, and we play another side of the town.
Or the river.
Yeah, so we go bum, bum, and so we'd have like a half an hour concert, and we'd go somewhere else a half an hour concert.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to tell you, this one funny story when I was in Moses, there was this sort of underground kind of guy. He seemed to be connected. You said connected. He drove us in this limousine, and it was Randy, Klon, and Brian, and I, and Dave Alexi, and this Paul St. John, who was we never ever dealt with Rich Angler. Rich Angler ended up being a great guy who did concerts forever, and this Paul St. John is the guy we always dealt with. He was his partner, and this guy was driving us. And so we went to this party after we did our concerts, and this guy goes, "Yeah, you guys are really great." He says, "You got this weird lead singer. He's into art or whatever he's doing, and he's doing all this crazy stuff. It's great." And he says, "He's great." He said, "And then you got this lead guitar player. He plays like Jimmy Page, and you got this Dave man, and he just pounds the drums." He says, "And then we got the guy who looks like a broad." And I go, wait a second, he said, I wrote most of the material here, I play the bass, I did what, it's not bad that you look like a broad, you look like a broad, I mean, it's cool, that's what you do. I said, no, like this would go on for like 20 minutes, half an hour, all night, I look like a broad. I know I look like a broad, but that's not the point here.